Hi there, everybody. I'm getting ready for the live, and this time in my own channel and doing something like this, an art journal page using Art by Marlene Go Dutch collection. There's still a couple more minutes until time here is 3, which is the announced time, so there's time for you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, or if you want to create alongside with me, then an art journal, some acrylic paints, old book pages and such. Unfortunately, when I have the phone in landscape mode, I don't see the comments as they come, but I'll go through them after I've finished the page. Well, yeah, just a couple of more minutes until we start. Samassa ehkä suomeksikin vielä. Eli jotain tällaista ollaan tekemässä. Puhekielenä pääasiassa englanti, mutta kysymyksiä voi heittää suomeksikin, niin käyn kaikki ne läpi sitten niin kuin tämän jälkeen. Koska kun mulla on tää puhelin tässä suunnassa, niin mä en näe kommentteja samaan aikaan kun ne tulee. Mutta käyn toki kaikki läpi. Okay, so there's a couple of more minutes, so go grab yourself some coffee or tea. I'll just grab my teacup for a second. Oh, and what I need to do is to check that everything is, that you can see and hear me. Just a second. Paperi later. Hopefully everything is fine. This is just kind of a really easy page with some collaging, and I'm planning to color these. I'm not a huge colorer, as you can see, but I can just check, like show my way. These are my markers. They are just brush tip markers, and the other one is a really fine nib, but I like to use them. They're water-based, easy to use. Okay, my husband just signaled me that everything is good, so you can see and hear. So I really don't like when I can't see the comments when the phone is like this, but it's handier for me to have it in landscape than horizontal, portrait, because then you would see a whole lot of table and, well, yeah. But let's get gradually started. I'm using We Are All Artists, an art journal from the Go Dutch collection. There's 20 pages and they are really thick paper because it's 300 grams. But naturally you can use any paper. This is thick enough to work on mediums on top, so it's easy to use. And let's start with some collaging. These are just vintage papers from Riikka, so some actual old, what are these, letters and mikä on lasku? Receipts. Sorry, I'm lost for words again. So let's use that as one, and then a couple of pieces. Depending what you have, I'm using soft matte gel, which is a fluid gel medium. But if you have Mod Podge or anything equivalent, or you can even use craft glue diluted with water. But a gel medium, thin one, is really handy for collaging paper. What I'm doing first is kind of going through the whole page. Sorry about that. Okay, now it's focused again. I'm covering the whole page, so there's no difference between untreated and treated areas. And also I'm going to use those markers later on when I need an unabsorbing surface. So you could use gesso as well, but no need for a couple of jars if you use just the gel. And I really like this receipt, so I'm using it as a whole. And then just the pieces of a book paper are torn in little pieces. This is kind of just breaking the blank page. It's a good way to start any kind of project, whether it's art journal page or card or a bigger canvas. Just collaging. And as you can see, I don't think that much where to place these. It's just a way to break the blank page. Some of these texts are in Finnish and some of them are in Germany, I guess. So here we go. That's the first layer. Really easy. Then let's dry this really quickly. It's not totally dry, but dry enough for now. And then I added some color, kind of concentrating to the untreated places to have something going on there as well. Just a couple of colors of acrylic paint. And as you can see, I'm using my fingers. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, then by all means just grab a brush. But to me this is kind of a fun way to apply the paint. Also it has a totally different look to it than if I would use a brush. I'm mainly going over the places where there's nothing happening beforehand. So just like the white areas, now they have some color. And then let me clean my fingers a bit so I don't have blue markings all over. Then some acrylic paint. This is just packaging plastic. It's kind of my palette. Acrylic paint. And as with stencil work, dab on, dab off, like Julie Faith and Balzer says. So there's not too much in your applying tool or sponge when you go over. I felt that this rose stencil by Kuusade, it's a Finnish little company, kind of fitted perfectly with the Dutch theme, because the blue roses kind of, at least to me, started to resemble the porcelain patterns that there are in the cover of this journal. Just an easy layer. It's all about, at the moment, for me, building layers, kind of getting something interesting to the page. Nothing like too definite at this point. And as you probably know, acrylic paints do dry quite quickly and harden up. So just put your stencil in a bucket of water or then clean it right away. So this is kind of the background I have. Let me show you the ready page. Like that. Let's see if I can get these sticking to the page as it is, or do I need to dry the paint? These are the Go Dutch washi tapes or decorative tapes. For example, here is the same kind of pattern that the rose stencil from Kuunsade kind of reminded me of, those porcelain decorations. So let's add, then I used this one kind of to make the ground, sorry, can't speak, because there's the, here we go, houses coming on top, so they can't float in mid-air, but they need something to stand on, let's say. If you're just joining in, first of all, thank you for joining, and second of all, when I have my phone on landscape, I unfortunately can't see the comments as they come, but I'll go through everything after I've finished the page. So if there's any questions or you want to ask about where I got the materials or something, then I'll answer. The collection which I'm using, I'm a guest designer for the Go Dutch collection from Art by Marlene, and that's available through Joggles and from Art from the Heart at least. And if you're in Finnish, let me switch language. Suomesta sitä on saatavista Heidin korttipajasta, tätä kokoelmaa, mikä on niin pääasiallisesti työskentelyn kohteena tällä hetkellä, Heidin korttipajasta tai sitten Nannalta. Niin heiltä löytyy tai on tulossa tätä kokoelmaa jo. A quick sip of tea. So now we have kind of the background done. Then just to add the rays of sun before turning into the stamping, and then this can dry in the middle. So for that I'm using a sunray stencil and icing paste from Finnabair. You could do something like this on your own as well. There's like the easiest version is to cut it in a paper, but naturally if you're using something as kind of thick and adhesive quality as this icing paste, then it's easier to have an actual stencil to work, so it's then not sticking to the page. But naturally you can use transparency and cut something like this. Icing paste, if you're not familiar with it, it's a really thick kind of modeling paste but with different colors. This one is golden, kind of mimicking the sun. And as it's so thick, the impression you get out of it, it's really crisp. Let me show you a bit closer. So here we go. It's like this at the moment. Then I'm moving this a bit to the side so it can dry. You could use a heat tool as well, but that's it, acrylic based. It starts boiling and I want that crisp, smooth kind of look to it rather than bubbly that it might cause when using a heat tool. So that's why I tend to let it air dry rather than use my heat tool to dry it. The collection just, oh, come on, focus, thank you. The collection has 2 different sets of stamps. There's one with this windmill and a girl, bicycle, and some tulips, and another one with houses on 2 different sizes, a frame and a sun. And I'm currently, when I've been working with these, I'm always kind of mixing the two sets, because here I love the houses and the sun, and here I love the tulips and the windmill. So it's always kind of using both sets. So let me just stamp that one, for example, and then grab this one as well and stamp a couple of the tulips. As my markers, which I'm using to color these, are water-based, so that's why I can use archival ink and oil-based ink to stamp the images. And this is kind of a rare situation. I'm actually using an acrylic block to stamp and not just stamping right into the paper, because this time I'm hoping to get the whole tulip, for example, and not just a part of it, which is a kind of usual way I'm using stamps. And then these are just from a craft store. Like I said, water-based, but they have kind of okay selection of colors in the pack. And they do have a brush tip, so they are easy to use to color. What I'm usually doing for these I colored beforehand, so you don't have to see me color that long, is that I take 2 kind of colors that are close to each other and first go the outlines and then color it in. These are just regular white cardstock. A heavier or smoother would be better, but this one is okay as well. So for example, the sun, I usually use orange and just go around the edge, and then I take yellow. First kind of color it in and then try to mix the 2 colors a little bit near the edge. I know it's really saturated, the paper is a bit wet, so it takes some time for it to look a bit better. And for the tulips, I actually, because there's just one actual red in the set, then I'm using this purple-ish pink, kind of the outline or the shadow. And then color it using the red, going over the purple as well. So it kind of turns it into a darker red, more like a wine red color, and kind of creates that dimensional look. Naturally, if you have Copics or you are an actual colorer, then you can have a much nicer look, but to me this is okay. Oh, come on, focus. I'm not that skilled in the coloring, but to me this is still okay. I can have kind of the dimensional look, varying look with these, and there's just 12 colors. So it's not always about that you have 30 different colors, but more like have fun with the materials you have. Let's do a pink one here. So for the pink one I'm going first with red, kind of as the shadow, and then adding the pink on top, and again going kind of near the place where the two colors meet a couple of times to make it more blend into each other. Let's turn this one into yellow. And then the stems in green. Now I need to color that little tulip there as well. Maybe go with purple. If you have color pencils, watercolors, again, use what you have. I used to have a bigger collection of Copic markers, like alcohol markers, but then for the longest time I didn't use them, and I actually gave those away to my daughters. So now they are happy, and I'm just using these markers, but they are fine because I can use them on the background as well. Where did I put it? There. Later on, because there's now a seal, let's say, from the gel medium that's underneath. So let me move this. Let's see. Yeah, starting to be dry, so we can soon continue. In the meanwhile, let me cut these loose. A couple of the houses, some tulips, and the sun. The sun has a lovely details, but if I'm cutting it loose, I'm not going to cut the little hearts, but rather that just the sun. But then I actually stamp the sun to my page, so that's how I get both the little details and then this colored part in there. I'm trying to be really swift with the cutting. As you probably can see when I'm cutting, fussy cutting, or hopefully you can see that my hands are placed so that they are visible. The scissors stay put, and I actually move the tulip or whatever I'm cutting in my hands, so it's kind of faster than if I would try to move my scissors around. I should have actually recut these as well. Now would be a perfect time to answer your questions, but unfortunately, like I said earlier, I can't see them when my phone is in landscape, so unfortunately I need to go through them after I've done the page. But let me, if you're just joining in, let me say what I did to the background. So there is just vintage book paper and receipts collaged using soft body gel medium, and I treated the whole page so there's kind of a seal there. The journal I'm using is from the Go Dutch collection. Sorry, needed to concentrate for a while. So it's really heavy paper, 300 grams paper, so you don't need to seal the page because you're afraid that something would bleed through, unless it's alcohol inks or something that always bleed through paper. But it's for using those markers on top later on. And also I find it easy when I'm collaging then go over the whole page, so the whole surface acts the same way whenever I'm doing a layer on top. Then every area of the page works the same way and not just the places where I've actually added something. Then I added some acrylic paint there, just a couple of colors of blue paint. First using my fingers, and then I added a little bit of pattern using rose stencil as well. Then I made a ground for my little houses, whoopsie daisy, to stand on using the Go Dutch washi tape. That's the stripy one here. And then the sunshine or the sun rays are done using a thick modeling paste styled product called Icing Paste in golden color, and that was again through a stencil, this time a sun ray version. Then I stamped some of the images with the two different stamp sets, colored them using just regular brush tip markers, and now I'm cutting them loose from their background. Let's cut one more. This is really fast and fun kind of journal page. The longest time actually goes to coloring the images and cutting them loose. But if you've done that beforehand, let's say, then it's ready in no time. Here we go. So let me gather those there. Then somewhere there's the little sun. Let's add her first. I'm placing the stamp near the corner because normally I don't use a stamp like acrylic block, but this time I'm using, and I want to have the whole sun there, so it's easier if it's just in the corner. And then let's take our sun and glue it on top. So that's how I get both the teeny tiny intricate patterns and the colored part on top. Then some random stamping. This time I don't need that block. I just need the little, whoops. This is the same stamp from one of the sets. I find script stamps really handy because they usually go to any project. And this is kind of just another background layer, giving some background to the houses. A little bit more. Then I need the frame. Let's this time try to use the block. Let's see if I'm losing it later, but yeah. This is kind of just leading the eye in, so there's stuff happening near the focal point, which is going to be the houses. Let me show you again from the one previously made. So they are kind of having a frame around them, something gathering all the gaze here. And then before I add the houses and flowers, let me use the markers in another way to add a little bit variation to the background, because now it's mostly just blue. I used two colors of blue, but still it's really just one color. So as I have the gel medium layer all around the page, I can use these water-based markers like watercolors. So I'll just put some marker down to the page and then use a wet brush to move the color around. So that way I can kind of mix in the same colors I have in my stamped images going on in the page, and also kind of create a varying layer on top, so there's not just the blue but a hint of green or red or another stronger shade of blue or whatever I want. And it's kind of, because it's a translucent thing, it's floating on top of the page, so it just turns or transforms the color a little bit without being too harsh, more like just a glaze over the surface. Maybe one more, like some red there. And if you're using like crayons for coloring or water-soluble pencils, naturally you can use those in to add another color layer to your background. It's kind of just using the materials more than one way. So then we need maybe to dry a little bit, or otherwise my paper will get too moist. Thereabouts. I can get those bigger blobs just away for now. Then I use just regular craft glue for the houses. Here, and then the other one. there's now a couple of differences between these two and also with the previous ones. Here's a bit of details I made using a white Posca marker. So I can just add little dots, or like I did with the red one over there, there's like a stripe pattern, because these Posca markers, they are acrylic markers or styled like acrylic markers, so they are covering, so you can add your own little tweaks to the colored stamped images. And for the tulips I just added white dots, kind of just having a little bit more my markings in there. And then the other is that this white space, it's really kind of jumping off the page. So for that I used again the markers in a watercolor way, but this time if I would put the marker here, there's nothing to seal it, so let me show you here. And even if I then take a wet brush, I can kind of move it around, but there's the big blob. So the trick is to use plastic where these markers don't stick, and then just a wet brush, kind of mimic or turn the white into something else than just being white. So, oops, wrong end. Be a teeny tiny touch of the turquoise blue as well. And again, as you can see, I'm not being that careful. It's just to kind of blend those houses in. And then let's add the tulips. It's now gardening time. For these I'm using foam dots to have a little bit of dimension in the page. If you would like to have it flatter, naturally you can just use craft glue or double-sided tape or any other adhesive for that part to adhere these. But I kind of like that there's a little bit of layered effect. When my older daughter was really small, she didn't put any sand or anything else than food to her mouth, except these little white dots or the coverings like these. I needed to keep a really good eye that nothing was on the floor, because those were the things she ate. There we go. Trying to do a little tulip garden with these. Should I add? Yeah, just one more, even though it's even number. Odds usually work better, but I think the page I did before also had 4 and not odd numbers, so here we go. And then what I did in this page as a finishing touch is to add the texts. So let's do that. It's one of the stamps. I just cut it apart. So here's the text. stamp it there. Then I use scissors. If you want everything to be really neat, you can naturally use a paper cutter here. But to me it goes well just by cutting these by hand. It's kind of giving the page the whimsical effect that there's already going. Two more. Whoops. And then let's adhere these. You could use double-sided tape, or if you want them really sturdy, you can first add a thick or broad double-sided tape behind before cutting the text apart, so then you have kind of a stickers. I'm hoping I'm not actually paying attention so much that I'll adhere the words in the right order. They would only take me as I am, yes. And then the last one. Will it fit? Yes, more or less. And then white Posca, kind of the highlight, the text. There we go. Really fast, easy, fun journal page with collage background, stamped elements, and I was actually coloring. That's huge for me in a way. And then some dimensional elements. The stamps, the journal, the tapes are from this collection, art by Marlene, Go Dutch. And rest of the materials are from different manufacturers. Like I said in the beginning, unfortunately I can't see your comments, but now I go through them. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, just write them down and I'll answer. And, well, have a nice day, everybody. Thank you for joining. Bye!